Good afternoon. The Tuesday, November 5th, 2024 meeting of the Sugar Land Development Corporation is now in session. Do we have any public comment? No? Okay, thank you. Number 3, minutes, consideration of an action on the minutes of the October 1st, 2024 Sugar Land Development Corporation meeting. We have a motion to approve. Okay, motion by McCutcheon, second by Kermali. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against? Okay, approved. Number 4, contracts and agreements. A, consideration of an action on authorization of a 5-year economic development performance agreement with Contract Land Staff LLC in the amount of $456,000. And we have Chandler Molpus, Economic Development Coordinator. Chandler?
So good afternoon. Today I'm bringing forward the performance agreement for Contract Land Staff. We're joined by the CEO, Kevin Romito, as long as Dustin Richter and Matthew Dickinson. So, all right, to begin, I do want to reiterate the mission for the corporation is to create a sustainable business environment that promotes a quality economy that helps enhance the standard of living for both the residents and businesses and creates a diversified tax base. So now let's go into project details. So Contract Land Staff LLC, currently headquartered in Sugar Land, is one of the largest independent right-of-way and land services companies in the nation. Contract Land Staff provides a combination of services for electric transmission and distribution, utility, public infrastructure, wind and solar, rail, pipeline, and telecommunications clients since 1985. So with this project, CLS is looking to retain their lease at 2245 Texas Drive in Sugar Land Town Square. They're in around 22,500 square feet of office space. They will also retain 76 employees in Sugar Land at an average annual salary of $70,000 and retain their corporate headquarters in the city. So in terms of the performance agreement, the term of the headquarter retention incentive would be 5 years, and CLS would need to sign a 5-year lease at 2245 Texas Drive, spend at least $575,000 on capital improvements and equipment, and retain 76 employees at an average salary of $70,000. This incentive would be $456,000 paid out over 5 fiscal years, and I will note there are clawbacks in place to recapture if requirements are not met. Okay, so this project was reviewed by the Economic Development Committee, and staff does recommend approval. I want to say, as we work to reduce our office vacancy rates, this project retains a corporate headquarters in the city. And according to CoStar, the vacancy rate of office space in Sugar Land Town Square is around 25%. So this higher vacancy rate drives the need to retain a business like CLS in Sugar Land Town Square. If approved and Contract Land Staff meeting all of the terms of the 5-year agreement, the first of the 5 annual payments would take place by March 31st, 2026. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
Questions, anyone? No?
Motion approved.
Okay, motion by Zimmerman. Second? Second by Ferguson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, passes. Thank you, Chandler. 4B. Oh, and thank you for investing in our city. We really appreciate you. I want you to make sure you know that. 4B, consideration of an action on authorization of a 3-year founding anchor corporate membership agreement with Plug and Play LLC, DBA Plug and Play Tech Center, and the amount of $4,500,000. Chandler Molpus again. Chandler, take it away.
Thanks. So now I'll bring the performance agreement for Plug and Play forward. I'm joined by the Vice President of Growth Strategy for Plug and Play, Sharif Sadawi. He'll also join in on this presentation and talk a little bit about Plug and Play's mission and the program and what it would look like in Sugar Land. So let's see. So the first thing I want to talk about is in the strategic outcome areas defined by City Council, staff is charged with attracting and incubating the growth of new innovators and entrepreneurs within Sugar Land. In recent years, city staff has had many discussions with different accelerator and incubator programs to work to achieve this outcome. And as part of this greater initiative, we engaged with Plug and Play in early 2024. So a little background on Plug and Play, and Sharif will give you a little bit more as well. But so founded in 2006, Plug and Play has more than 60 locations worldwide. They're ranked the world's most active investor by PitchBook. Plug and Play has accelerated 2,700 startups in 2023 alone. The company has more than 550 corporate partners across the world, including the likes of Walmart, ExxonMobil, Shell, AstraZeneca, and many more. This would not be their first location in Texas. They've also worked with other EDCs in Texas, including in Cedar Park in the Austin area and Frisco and McKinney as well. When we first started our discussions with Plug and Play, 4 factors really kind of made Plug and Play stand out. The first was Plug and Play's large corporate network, those big corporate partners like the Shells, the Exxons of the world. The second was the company's reputation as an investor. As you can see, it ranked the world's most active investor by PitchBook. The third was the company's interest in having real estate in the city, leasing real estate in the city. That's something that we hadn't necessarily seen in other models of accelerators and incubators in the past. And the fourth I want to talk about is Plug and Play's role as a job creator. Sharif will give a couple other, case studies, but I wanted to point out an example in Arizona. So recently, Plug and Play launched a location in Arizona with the Arizona Commerce Authority, and just within 12 months alone, they accelerated 24 startups and created 55 new local jobs in Arizona. So as you can see, they add a lot more than maybe some other models could. So now I kind of want to discuss what a possible Sugar Land location would look like. So Plug and Play is looking to locate as well to Sugar Land Town Square. We've put them in, connection with both Reeby's and Limestone to view both office and some ground floor locations throughout the square as well. I'll touch on this again later, but it's an important element. Plug and Play would launch the Greater Houston area's flagship location. There would be no other locations within the Greater Houston area. There's a 60-mile radius, but I'll touch on that again later. And most importantly, this would be focused on a smart cities vertical. So in short, think of a vertical as a sector or focus of the program. That's probably the best way to describe it. And after internal deliberation and conversations with key stakeholders, staff has chosen to pursue the smart cities vertical for a possible Sugar Land location. One reason, or a few reasons we think that smart cities is the best choice is smart cities is well accelerated for an accelerated program in Sugar Land because it encompasses a wide range of technologies, but still maintains a focused approach. The program is designed to be adaptable, allowing for change based on subsector and stakeholder interest. For example, based on stakeholder interest, you could see Smart Cities Plug and Play include startups across sectors such as mobility, transportation, health, sustainability, and more. And with this in mind, I want to pass it off to Sharif to tell you a little bit more about what a plug and play in Sugar Land would look like and the vision he has. Thanks.
Thank you, Chandler, and thank you to you all. So Plug and Play, for those of you who are not familiar, our mission statement is driving innovation. We've done that by building this really incredible ecosystem that is composed of all the key stakeholders that make up that innovation value chain. So entrepreneurs, corporates, investors, universities, and governments. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Plug and Play, I think this slide really breaks it down best into our 3 core pillars. Chandler touched on these already, but as a VC, we're the most active VC in the world, meaning we write more checks than any other investor out there. Our corporate innovation platform, we work with over 550 corporates who essentially see Plug and Play as an extension of their own innovation efforts. So they come to us with their pain points and we help solve them by connecting them with technology in the form of startups. And then lastly, we run accelerator programs. So in each one of those 60 plus locations, we're running accelerator programs. As you can see, we do this on a pretty big scale. At the bottom, you can see where those startups come from, so all corners of the globe. A few things make our approach unique and stand out from a more traditional model. First being is that it's equity free. So everything that startups get through a plug and play program is completely free of charge. All they're giving up is their time to join our programs. What that allows us to do is really attract the best breed of entrepreneurs to these programs. The second piece is that they're all stage agnostic. So in any given cohort, so say here in Sugar Land, you could have a very early stage company with 4 employees in the same cohort as a company that's raised over $50 million. The reason being is the likes of Walmart, Shell, et cetera, they like to see a mix of both. They want to see the early stage cutting edge startups that might be disrupting the market in say 5-10 years time, but they also want to work with startups that are mature enough to work with a large enterprise client like an Exxon. The last piece is that they're all sector specific. So all of our accelerator programs are industry themed. We'll talk about why we chose smart cities, but just wanted to touch on that. On the investment front, I'll just quickly run through this. We've got about 2,000 companies currently in our portfolio. We've got over 30 unicorns now, meaning those companies are worth over $1 billion. We were also the first or second check into almost every one of these companies. And that's why we do what we do, is finding talented folks early in their journey, backing them and helping them scale. And we've been really successful at doing that. A big reason we've been able to make those great investments and a big reason we're able to attract the best startups to our programs is because of the corporate network that we work with. So these folks come from all different geographies, all different industries, and the way that they'll participate with Plug and Play is by joining one or more of these industry verticals that we operate. So pretty much every major industry is covered. Here in Sugar Land, why we chose smart cities, Chandler touched on it, but it's really, it allows us to cast a wide net. And since this is going to be our flagship location and only location, we're trying to serve the entire greater Houston area. So attracting all of those corporates, we think smart cities is a good choice. I think what makes Plug and Play so kind of unique and powerful as an organization is this footprint of locations. What this does is it offers startups soft landing pads to enter new markets. So here in Sugar Land, once we've identified what industry is looking for, we can find a solution no matter where they come from in the world and attract them to the city and hopefully help them stay in the city. It's not our first rodeo in Texas. We've got 3 other locations. So in Cedar Park with the McKinney EDC, we launched an advanced manufacturing program. And in each one of these slides, you can see the corporates that are engaged in those programs. In Frisco, it's focused on sports tech. We've got Dallas Cowboys, FC Dallas, and a bunch of others. But we're also pulling in corporates from our own network. So for example, on this line, Adidas, T-Mobile, and Gatorade through Pepsi are all current Plug partners that we brought into the fold when we launched this program in Frisco. And it's the same here in McKinney, where we launched an enterprise and AI program with the help of McKinney EDC. And the Sugar Land EDC team have done their due diligence, not just on Plug and Play, but part of that has been speaking to our funders in a lot of other locations, including all of our Texas locations. So now let's talk about Sugar Land. Smart Cities program in Sugar Land. What I really just want to kind of reiterate or double click on is that Plug and Play is more than just an accelerator program. Think of the accelerator program as kind of a core set of activities around which we wrap around all these other innovation-focused activities for the rest of the ecosystem. And then the network. I gave an example earlier of Frisco and how we brought our network into the fold. We'd be looking to do the same thing here in Sugar Land. What Plug and Play's model, what we've shown to be really effective in multiple locations, is being this kind of perfect nexus for bringing all these different stakeholders together that have very different interests around these programs. For example, the University of Houston, who we've already spoken to, have shown a lot of enthusiasm of getting involved from day one. On the corporate side, there's 24 Fortune 500 companies in the greater Houston area, 48 Fortune 1000 companies, all of which we think will have a vested interest in this program. So again, bringing them into the fold. The way that we structure these accelerator programs is that we form a board or an advisory committee. The role of that, essentially they guide the strategic direction of that program. So the EDC would have a seat at that board, but it would also be industry stakeholders. Their 2 key roles would be, number 1, dictating the focus areas. So what are the challenges that we're trying to solve here in Sugar Land? And then 2, they participate in this selection process. So this is just an outline of what that process looks like. For each cohort, there's 2 cohorts per year. We'll start off with a pool of about 300 startups that we've identified that we think are a good match for Sugar Land and the stakeholders here. We'll filter that down to the top 10%. Then the board actually rank those 30 startups. Those 30 startups, the highest ranked startups, make it to a selection day, which is a live pitch in front of an audience, which includes those board members, and they actually vote on who gets admitted to the program. So number 1, step 1 is starting with industry first, because we want to make sure we're solving real problems in the program. And then 2, they've got a hand in the actual process of choosing who makes it in. With the idea being, if they're choosing them when they start this 3-month program, they'll be working very closely together with those startups. So this is an timeline. Assuming this goes forward today, we'd like to make an announcement. We've got our big flagship conference in a couple of weeks' time in California, kind of announce it on stage in front of thousands of people, get hiring straight away. We've already identified office space, begin sourcing startups for the first cohort, and then start with a launch in late February, early March. On the ground here, we'll have a team of 4 who are running the program. So a director, ventures associate, who's essentially looking at startups all day long, program manager who covers the day-to-day operations and logistics of running accelerator program, and a community manager. Something that's really important is that behind every plug-and-play program, there's a whole army of folks behind the scenes who are supporting the program. So it's not just the 4 people on the ground here. We have, like, in the office that I work at in California, we've got about 250 people, half of which are supporting satellite offices, like hopefully the one here. The last thing I'll touch on before I give another case study is our mentors. So mentors are a real core part of the program. You'll see here our mentors come from a huge variety of backgrounds, and it really speaks to Plug and Play's ability to serve startups and meet them where they're at. Some of the startups are very early stage and they really lean on our mentors. Other startups are a bit later stage and they just want to meet our corporates. So no matter where a startup is, we've got the tools, we've got the network to help them. One good example of working with a public sector entity that's coming up on its 3rd year now is in Alberta, Canada. A few reasons why I wanted to bring this up, but I just want to show you some kind of comparisons here. So if you look at all of these metrics in Alberta, where we've been extremely successful, and then you compare them to the greater Houston area, in terms of GDP, it's almost twice as big here. In terms of population, it's the same. College students, which are so important for innovation, entrepreneurship, there's almost 3 times as much, or almost 4 times as much here in the greater Houston area. Then lastly, if you look at the corporate landscape, 49 or 48 Fortune 1000 companies, that's a lot of companies that can get engaged. And the startup ecosystem here is just so much more mature. So given all that, this is the impact that we've had in Alberta in the first 3 years, or just shy of 3 years. We have over 400 program events. There's a few things that I just want to kind of point out. Number one is the direct introductions that we make to those startups. That's the power of Plug and Play's network, is if they're looking for corporate introductions, we can make them. Some of them are looking to raise fund. We have hundreds of VCs that we co-invest with that we can call upon. Proof of concepts and pilots. So over 180 proof of concepts and pilots. That's when a startup and a corporate meet, identify what the challenge is, what the solution is, and exchange funds and undertake some kind of project. For us, that's one of the biggest measures of impact. And then lastly, those startups that we've accelerated in Alberta have collectively raised over $500 million, half of which was by local companies from Alberta. And if you look at job creation, every $1 million that's raised by a startup generally translates to between 7 to 10 jobs, depending on the industry and depending on the geography. But that's kind of some job creation metrics from Alberta. The last slide, and then I'll stop and pass it over to Chandler again, is we invest in the ecosystems that we're in ourselves. So in Alberta, we've made 22 investments. Just 2 weeks ago, we wrote a $500,000 check into Queen's Carbon, but we'll be looking to do the same here. And then the last thing is Plug and Play's sustainable business model. Plug and Play started working exclusively with private sector. So just working with corporates solving their problems. So with a project like this, we're able to build a sustainable business model on top of that by engaging the corporate ecosystem here and therefore reducing kind of the financial burden on the city. But that's it for me, and looking forward to your questions. Over to you.
Thank you, Sharif. Let's see. So yeah, now, thank you, Sharif. I want to talk a little bit about what Plug and Play's obligations would be in a performance agreement. So per the agreement, Plug and Play must execute a lease within the city. As I mentioned before, this is important as other accelerator and incubator program models that we saw weren't always willing to do that, maybe looking more into a virtual type model or something like that. Additionally, Plug and Play will not be able to launch another location within 60-mile radius of the city. I want to reemphasize that's very important. Sugar Land would serve as the hub for innovation in the greater Houston area. The city will also receive a spot on the advisory committee or board, as Sharif kind of talked about. That allows the city to be able to set the program's mission and goals, as well as, benefiting as an end user as well and being in the selection process for the startups. So that's all things that are very important. He mentioned it. This program will accelerate 2 batches of startups a year. When you think batch, it's a cohort of around 10 to 15 startups. And at the end of each of those batches, we'll receive a batch report, which we've printed out an example batch report from the Cedar Park Plug and Play that's up there with you. And additionally, they'll produce a segment report at the end of the year. So think of that as an annual report that highlights the milestones and the successes that you've seen at that location. As he mentioned as well, there will be 4 full-time employees hired locally that are required as part of the performance agreement, as well as access to their proprietary playbook database. Where I want to touch on this as being important so their playbook database, Plug and Plays, it basically houses data and contact information for 88,000 startups and companies. So this could be very effective in our business attraction efforts for not only just startups, but even, reaching out possibly to larger corporates in the life sciences sector or in other target industry sectors as well. And then lastly, I want to touch on they'll be required to host events. So that includes the selection day. So you'll see 2 of those for the start of each batch, the larger expos, which are kind of like, I guess, for lack of a better term, a graduation type situation. Then you'll see also they're required to host 2 larger community events per quarter, as well as deal flow sessions, the mentorship sessions that are weekly, and other smaller internal events as well. And staff will also work with the Plug and Play staff to not only have monthly updates, monthly meetings with Plug and Play staff to update us on their progress of how things are going, but we also want to arrange at least quarterly updates to the Economic Development Committee as well. So now let's talk a little bit about the financial commitment and the way that's structured. So in terms of the city's financial commitment, SLDC would enter into a 3-year agreement with Plug and Play worth $1.5 million per year to become the Houston at Metro Area's flagship location. This payment would come from the SLDC's Reserve for Opportunity Fund. The first payment would occur by January 1st, 2025, after the execution of this agreement to help the program get up and running, execute a lease, things like that. And then the following 8 payments, as you can see the way they're structured, would occur after receiving the batch reports and/or segment reports and Plug and Play meeting its other obligations. So I do want to note, Sharif hinted at it, so corporate partners could help lower the city's financial burden as well. So as Plug and Play secures additional funding from private sector partners, the city's financial obligation will decrease. So for every dollar raised from a private sector source that joins the Sugar Land Plug and Play, the city's commitment is reduced by 50 cents. So think of it, if a company joins and writes Plug and Play a $500,000 check, $250,000 is knocked off the city's contribution with a obligation floor at $750,000. So this project has been reviewed by city leadership in the Economic Development Committee, and staff does recommend approval. If approved, the projected launch, as Sharif mentioned, for Plug and Play in Sugar Land would be sometime late February, early March 2025. And once again, I want to reiterate, in the strategic outcome areas, staff is charged with attracting and incubating the growth of new innovators and entrepreneurs in the city. We really believe this partnership with Plug and Play helps us achieve that outcome, as well as strengthening our business attraction efforts, not only, like I said, of just startups, but also of larger corporations as well. Thank you very much for your time. Do you have any questions?
Chandler, thank you. And Sharif, thanks for coming to town. Appreciate it. I'll defer to the eldest member of this group for the first question.
Well, I don't really have a question. I've got a comment. So initially, when this came to economic development, I'll be honest, I was a little bit suspicious. We're talking a pretty substantial sum of money.
Yes.
But as they addressed our concerns, and we brought the team in and we heard from different individuals and what their expertise was and how they went about their business. And as they explained how they went about their business and the opportunities that they offered, we couldn't do this on our own. And so this gives us a chance to play in a different arena than we've played before. Is it a lot of money? Absolutely. But I think it's worth the risk. And I think the fact that they establish an office here, they have 4 full-time employees, we get a seat on the board, so we're actively involved, our economic development, our staff, someone on the council to be determined later is going to be actively involved in the direction and participate. And for that reason, I know as mayor, I wholeheartedly support this and I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Zimmerman. Do we have a second? Second by Watley. I have a question. Chandler, the EDs, I get the smart cities. I absolutely do. And I think evidence shows that we're ahead of most. But the EDC spend a lot of time and a little bit of money determining that biotech was our niche. So how do we square all that with this?
Yeah, well, one thing that we liked about the smart cities vertical in general was that flexibility with it. So within smart cities, it can shift focus. So as I mentioned, it can also have startups from the healthcare sector or the biotech sector as well. And we feel like the smart cities vertical essentially allowed us to be able to touch on all of the sectors of our target industries, while instead of just, maybe gearing specifically towards something like life sciences alone as the hub here, because then you have things like TMC down the road and things where maybe that infrastructure and that ecosystem might already exist, while this allows us to kind of be flexible, and it can touch on both, advanced manufacturing and the healthcare sector and other target industries that we have. So that's one reason that we lean towards this one.
Okay, one real quick one. How many miles is the Woodlands from here?
It's not 60, I think like 40-ish.
They made sure that it's.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Carol, do you have a question?
Yes, do you anticipate needing any funding after 2027 or think it'll be self-funding by that point?
Yeah.
So
If
the
you want.
example from Alberta, and I do recognize it is a lot of money, but in Alberta, they hired actually a third party kind of consultant to look at the project and do an independent analysis. And they estimated that they're getting a 9-to-1 return in terms of GDP impact from Alberta. Sorry, your question, I will.
After 2027, will more funding be needed, or what do you anticipate about
That's
that?
why I brought up Alberta. So in Alberta, we have 13 paid corporate partners. So our actual funders now are reallocating the money that they were paying us for the first 3 years, not to the projects that we're actually have in Alberta. Those are self-sustaining. We're actually focused now on bringing Alberta-based companies and taking them to international locations that Plug and Play has. So that's self-sustaining, and they're also doubling down by saying, we want to try more things with Plug and Play. Thank you.
Suzanne?
Thank you. Hey, Sharif, thank you for coming back again. We talked about this in EDC, but the non-compete radius is 60 miles. Is that the average for everyone that you do Plug and Play with in the cities?
No, these guys drive a hard bargain though. But no, in all honesty, we don't have any incentive to try and open up an office in downtown Houston.
You're competing against yourself.
Exactly. It cannibalizes its own.
So can we make it larger?
Can we make it larger?
Yeah.
I mean, is there much past 60 miles? I mean,
Austin.
Okay, and one of the things we talked about also, I'm all about ROI. So does the segment report basically give us the same mention or the same information as ROI would, the report?
yeah, I mean, it depends how you define ROI, like in terms of dollars in, dollars out. It could be job creation. It could be the number, the startups, how much they've raised. But yeah, that kind of information will all be there.
That's what I was wondering. Thank you.
And also, if there are things in a batch report that's important to the city or EDC that isn't in our traditional batch report, we're open to kind of tracking metrics, but we do a really good job of tracking all the KPIs.
The more we understand, the better. Thank you so much.
William?
You're either making me feel really old right now or just out of this room. I've read enough about Plug and Play that I see the actual benefit, but I got to be honest with you. I don't understand your revenue. I don't understand your expenses. I don't understand, if we get corporate partners and they put in 500,000, it reduces ours to 250,000. Does McKinney and these other Texas cities, have they produced reports that showed these benefits? And does it come about in a year? Is it 10 years later? It sounds like it's marketing to me. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm in a haze over this.
For the in Cedar Park and McKinney and Frisco, the ones that we've spoken to have all stated wholeheartedly to us that they've seen impacts from Plug and Play in their community, and couldn't say really anything higher. I know if Sharif, since you're a little closer to the ground on those, what would you say about kind of what you've seen in those?
Sure. And just to answer your first question of kind of like Plug and Play's business model, in a nutshell, Plug and Play's business model is that we have all of these locations. Each one of those locations have corresponding funders that fund the operations of those programs. Where Plug and Play makes our money is our investments. So as you saw, like kind of the 2,000 plus investments that we made, including 30 plus unicorns, that's really where Plug and Play makes our money. In terms of the other Texas locations, we all launched those in February of this year. So things don't happen overnight, but you get the signs where, for example, we have startups in our current cohort that are graduating next week that are working really closely with the EDC partners, asking about office space, what kind of support they can get for hiring. If you have a company, say from California, we actually encourage them not to stay in California because it's, quite frankly, too expensive. So growing in a place that's business friendly like Sugar Land, I mean, that's kind of like the outcome that you'd be wanting.
Quick follow-up. It sounds like you are focused marketing for our benefit, ultimately, as a city, the growth and redevelopment of our city. That's what it sounds like to me. And we are, as a city, investing or funding with the anticipation of you working your magic and generating corporate retail and investment dollars into our city. Won't happen overnight. And we do anticipate, based on what I heard you say, we will have local corporate partners that will invest more than likely.
Yeah, we would love to see not only companies, based throughout the Houston area, but also we're hoping to bring on companies in Sugar Land itself. And we've, like Sharif mentioned, we've had discussions with UH and UH Sugar Land, and they seem very excited about the possible venture as well.
Nishad?
Yeah, actually, William asked my question about the reimbursement. If a company invests $100,000, we would get the city would get a $50,000 credit. Or is that, am I correct?
Correct.
And I know the ones here in Texas are new and you just started this year, but are there other cities in other states where you've seen let's call it a $5 million investment that a city does or municipality does, but their number comes down? Or is it always the number that we've agreed to, which is today $4.5 million?
So actually that kind of clause of the burden on the city going down over time as we sign private industry.
Correct.
That's unique to this project here. So it's actually not something that we normally do.
Got it. Very good. Very good. No more questions.
Mayor?
Yeah, William, here's kind of how I've thought about this is, we're going to invest $1.5 million the first year to establish a beachfront with people that have an expertise in startups and businesses and contacts in corporate that we don't have, and it would take us a lot of years to build. So we're going to make an investment. There then, as they identify these companies, they're going to make investments in those companies. Those companies then have a choice of, since they got started here, they can certainly have a presence here, they can have an office here. All those, what we're looking to is to bring investment and jobs into Sugar Land. And I agree with what Chandler said, Stuart, about, we've targeted biotech, and I think we've got a really good start on that. But I think it's good that we take a little broader look at this. And this enables us to get out there and get going a lot. We could take us 10, 15 years. When you think about doing a startup, I mean, it takes you a year just to figure out where the front door is. And you've done one, I've done 3. And then, in 5 years, you hope you're breaking even. If you're breaking even in 3 years, you're doing great. And then when you look about growing at 10 or 15 years, there's a reason they call it an accelerator, because it takes that and multiplies it that much faster because you've got all this private investment that comes in, provides the equity, as opposed to the way I did. I had to go out and find it, which meant it was on my personal balance sheet, if you will. I didn't have much money, so you end up building your business and reinvesting, and growing it, but it takes you 15 years. Well, this is multiples less than that. That's what we're after. We're after, growing businesses in Sugar Land, but really beyond that. We don't want to be just restricted to what we have here. If we can get a base of operations for some of these high growth companies, I mean, you've got on your list, you've got PayPal, you've got Hippo, you've got some of these other companies. He calls them unicorns, which are over $1 billion. I mean, you get one or two of them here. It's just like Dell put Austin on the map 30, 40 years ago. And you look at it now, Round Rock.
And if I can add one thing, because we've been really focused on the startup side, but even on the corporate side, so actually all of our EDC funders from Texas are currently in Barcelona meeting our Spanish corporate partners. So the business attraction thing works both for the startup and the corporate front.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, we have a motion and we have a second. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, passes unanimously.
Thanks, Sharif.
Sharif, thank you again. Thank you, Chandler.
Thank you.
Item number 5, Director's Report. Elizabeth Huff. Hi, Elizabeth, Director,
Hello.
Executive Director of Economic Development.
Good afternoon. Okay, I'll make this really quick. So on the business development side, Alba and Jordan attended the Women in Economic Development Forum in Nashville earlier. They interacted with site selectors as well as other women in the economic development profession, had some great forums. Jennifer and Chandler also attended Yokogawa's Why Now 2024 conference in Houston. This was a really exciting opportunity where our private sector is inviting us to go and attend their conferences with them, that they host their suppliers or whoever it might be. They had some great topics discussed, including life sciences, energy, and the intersection of these industries together. And then also Chandler has now joined our CoreNet's Emerging Leaders group, and he's on the committee, and he participated in the Leaders Walking Tour of downtown Houston. So getting out there and getting more engaged with the real estate development community. And then on our marketing and tourism side, you all know the great, wonderful news of Trader Joe's opening. Our Visit Sugar Land team was out there live streaming from Instagram, and they garnered over 24,000 plays, 1,400 likes, and it was shared 1,600 times. Nowhere near Brian Butcher's, Instagram glory that he's got going on, but definitely a great response for us.
In District 2.
Jordan and Alyssa and Nicole also attended the Texas Travel Alliance Conference in Houston. So now that we've got Alyssa on board from Visit Houston, that we stole her from, we're definitely getting more involved in the travel, the tourism side and the conferences. And then, as you all know, you were there, we celebrated the Space Cowboys winning their first championship and had a proclamation that was given to them on October 16th at Constellation Field. We had a good group of people there, but that is just the commencement of hopefully a good bit of celebration that we'll have over the next year until the opening day in April. And then lastly, but definitely not least, we had Great Homes has closed their applications and is currently at 121 projects with 2.1 million in total project costs and 302 in city funds that have been committed. The most popular projects, as we've seen before, have been windows, the driveways, and people's siding. Jessica Hubble graduated from OU Economic Development Institute, which is a huge accomplishment. The program involves 117 hours of coursework and 3 years of focused topics such as workforce, credit analysis, managing economic development organizations, community development, and many, many more.
I'm just glad to see us supporting somebody other than Texas A&M. I think that's great.
You and me both. Devin, Ruth, and Kareem and Ethan also attended the Texas American Planning Association Conference in Allen. And in collaboration with the City of Arlington Planning Director, they shared about Sugar Land's redevelopment journey and compared similarities between the two cities. And then lastly, our fund grant of up to $75,000 is available for your neighborhood's new capital projects. So qualifying capital projects must demonstrate a public benefit and be publicly accessible and enjoyable. So please make sure to help share that those are open. That's all I've got. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And once again, to our friends from CLS and Plug and Play, thank you for choosing to make your business homes here. We genuinely appreciate you. Carol, we are adjourned at 4:28. Thank you all.
Thank you.